and my guest, Nita Kamari.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. So I don't know if I really told anybody ahead of time, but we're here again. Metaphysically Speaking, the show that I'm doing is mostly about thinking outside the box, being outside the box. I've started this little hashtag outside the box,
Nice.
which I'm sure I'm not the first person to use. But the truth is, the show is trying to approach what is not the norm, or how to look at things differently, how to think of things differently. I'm so excited to have Nita Kamari because actually I just found out that in addition to what she came to talk to us about, she also designed her own deck of cards, which is so outside the box, really outside the box, because it works with sound vibration and it works with planets. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So Nita, why don't you tell everybody what you do?
I do a lot of different things. One of the main things that I have been concentrating on in the last couple of years is I do intuitive readings. And in the intuitive readings, I also do something called family constellation work, which a lot of people don't know about, but there is a large community of people who do know about family constellations. Family constellation work is based.
It sounds so stellar. I have to also mention that Nita's an Aquarius, so it makes sense. When was your birthday, by the way?
Oprah's birthday, as I always say, January 29th.
Okay, so I didn't know that was Oprah's birthday. That's very cool that you share a birthday with Oprah.
I do. I love it.
I share a birthday with Donny Osmond. Do you know who Donny Osmond is? But that's good. I mean, I love Donny Osmond, and there's a couple of other people, but it's funny that that family constellations, it kind of reminds me of the Aquarian vision, because we're talking about constellations, we're talking about stars, but I don't think it's about stars. It's more about clustering, right?
Right.
Is that where you get the word
exactly.
constellations from?
Constellations, yeah.
Yeah. Constellations, not constellations.
Constellations.
How do you spell it? CONSTELL. Okay, I thought I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
You're fine.
So sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're fine. So constellation work is based on it's founded by a man called Bert Hellinger. Bert Hellinger, one of his trainings of many of the things that he's done went to train in psychoanalysis. So this is loosely based on psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, on how we learn behaviors, first of all. And then the spiritual twist, if you will, is how we inherit some of our family DNA and some of the traits through the two different ways that a human interacts. One is through the transference of blood and DNA,
right?
And the second is the transference of behavior,
right,
and from our parents,
right. And do you know what they say? They actually say that your entire reality for the rest of your life kind of gets laid out, or actually solidifies between the age of 0 and I think 7 or 8.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything that you know to be true, and the way that you look at life, the lenses that you look at life, are all based on the ideologies, what you were taught, and the messages, subconscious and conscious, that you received from, I guess, your parents and people that you took care of you.
Yeah, and then we spend the rest of our lives undoing all of that.
Undoing it or repeating it, really. It depends.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully if it's good, you'd want to repeat it, not undo it.
Yeah.
But you're actually working importantly on situations. I'm assuming that you're working on situations where there's blocks, or where there's some sort of patterning that is not helping the individual, or the individual's getting stuck.
Correct, yeah. So a lot of family constellation work is about that. It's undoing the hidden patterns, the negative entanglements that we have with our family system, so that we can live much more freely within our body systems at all levels, mental, emotional, physical, and then we can attract the healthier, healthier,
the things that we
yummy,
want.
the yummy things on
Yeah.
Earth that Earth has to offer.
Yeah.
So for me, like I just, for example, I kept for years, I've been working on myself for about 17, 18 years rigorously. And I noticed the patterns of men that I kept attracting into my life. And I'm sure we've all been there, and men who have attracted a certain type of women in their lives. And I had to really work hard and look at where was the dysfunction within me or my family system. Where did I learn that pattern so that I could release myself and not and attract healthier people, not just relationships, but just healthier people in general into my life.
It's funny because you were talking about you being able to attract the yummy things. But the truth is, I still think people attract things. They still get the opportunity. Everybody gets opportunity all the time. I mean, that's, it's something that we have to get up in the morning and hope for. And we have to go through our day and be optimistic about. So we all get those opportunities. But I think if you don't do the work, you'll get those opportunities and you might not either recognize them, or you might turn something in a direction that you don't want it to go. I think sabotage comes into this.
Right.
I think people sometimes sabotage something good because they don't think they're ready for it, or they don't think that they don't feel comfortable with it because maybe they didn't have that growing up. So they they think it's too good to be true.
Right.
All those things can happen. So, how did you get involved? Just because you were saying you had some negative relationships or relationships with people that weren't exactly what you were looking for?
Yeah. So the way I got into it is there's a gentleman used to live in LA, doesn't live here anymore, and he did body therapy. He did body healing, and I had a lot of issues in my body from car accidents. I met him. His name is Barry Cross, and he's really a big family constellation person in the USA. And he was telling me about the work, and I said, okay, I definitely need help with my family situation. So I did some constellations one-on-one with him. And constellation work is typically sometimes done in larger groups. And what he did was so concise, just one-on-one, and I felt safer, and I trusted him because he'd already done some body work with me, and the results of what I found were amazing. And so, just to explain how constellation works.
Yeah, tell us, because I'm kind of wondering myself. Is it like Reiki? Is it like therapy? Is it?
No, it's what it is in group sessions. So people come to participate, and then there is the person who's actually working on on something for themselves. So that's the working client, and the other people are just observers, or assisting, holding space, if you will. And what happens is, the way that most constellations are done are blind, meaning, let's say Madison is coming to me for a constellation healing, and she's got an issue. Let's say she's got a health issue. So constellation can work with depression, health issues. You want to shift something in your career, you want to attract something better, you want to shift money, you want to shift love, anything that you want assistance on. If you want to look at your business, in Germany, the government uses constellation work.
Wow.
In the governmental system to make decisions. And so, over there, it's really big. So Madison comes, she tells me, I want to work on this. We don't tell the larger group what she's working on, so nobody knows what we are working on. The reason why is because we don't want them to hold.
It sounds like a party game.
Yes, exactly. Charades with a spiritual twist. And so nobody knows, and the reason why is because nobody's holding on to any stories. And then what we do is we put in one person that's going to represent Madison.
Uh-huh.
And that person We then energetically put in the thing that Madison is trying to heal in her life. So let's say she's trying to further her career. So what happens is that's the intent. So we put in the positive intent, right? The positive thing that we're working on.
So, and that in this case, that would be that I would want to get to the next level, or I'd want to attract a new position.
Yeah.
Okay, but nobody in the room knows.
Nobody knows that we're working on your career pathway, right? So then we start putting in. So the person who's representing Madison, and we're all intuitive conduits.
What am I doing in the meantime?
So you're observing.
I'm just watching.
You're watching.
So it's like a play that nobody knows what parts they're playing, and I get to, and they're performing it for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody's, affected by what we call the field. So we open up by permission, obviously by Madison, her soul's field. And we, the person who's representing Madison will either have thoughts or feelings or movement, every little tiny
Why can't I represent me?
Well, we put you in at the end. You've got your stories that you're holding on to.
Okay.
This person is completely objective.
Okay.
Has absolutely no idea about your history. They also don't know what I've put in. I could have put your mother in first. I could have put your father in first. I could have just gone straight to the core of the business.
And by putting my mother and my father in, you mean placing other people that are also there to facilitate this sort of play. They're also in it. And you,
objectively representing.
Okay, my life.
Right.
It sounds like, it really does sound like a
very
play.
Playful, spiritual charades. Yeah. And so what we start doing is building. That person will, even tiny little movements. If somebody just hits the floor, we know instantly that if somebody goes into a tiny fetal space, that there is something that happened way early in childhood or even in the womb, or, that has sort of hindered the pathway for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So all different stages, different movements all tell you, they all have significance in the constellation.
So you read everything that every person brings to it.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
And then what we do,
that's okay.
Yeah. So then we start testing out, where is the tip in scales? Is it on the mother side? Is it on the feminine side or masculine side? So that we can see and then start working, building the constellation from there.
And do you feel that as this constellation gets built and played out, is that changing the past?
It's definitely changing the past, but one of the big things that I have discovered just in doing this work, and I do it at I work at the Mystic Journey bookstore as a reader there, and also privately, is I've began to heal people just in that reading room one-on-one. And so I've now sort of coined the way that I do this is here and now family constellations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like hashtag here and now family constellations.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
This is very unusual. When I first met Nita Kamari, I had never heard of anything like this before. I mean, it's interesting because you really don't, the people that are in the scene with you don't know what they're going to do. They don't know your history and they don't know what they're playing. But you're saying there's a synchronistic kind of component to it. And by doing that, it creates some movement in the pattern.
Yeah. So when we begin to build, and in the bigger constellations, you will pick, I want this person to represent my mom or my dad or whatever. They don't know what they're doing. But as you're picking other people, what I have noticed in the few years that I've been doing this is that other person is also getting a healing by you picking them.
So there's no mistakes. Maybe they have something that they're supposed to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they're supposed to plug into it.
Or it's even, it somehow resonates with them in their family system.
Well, there are no accidents. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting and a little esoteric. But I think that you're seeing improvement. I have a question though. Do people have to believe it to have it work? because I can imagine if they haven't done it before. And since it's kind of something, you said it's popular in Germany and it's being utilized in Germany, but it's not something that a lot of people are familiar with here. So if somebody's a first time person, do you feel that they don't have to really know as much about it to still get the healing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is just me. It's a great question, Madison. For me, it's like I really do want to work with the people who are ready to do their own healing work, because it's so much easier for me to hold that space, and then it's a less of a struggle for them and a less of a struggle for myself. But I'm very, very lucky that I have amazing clients who do trust me and do come to me because they are ready to do it and they trust me to get them there. So I'm super blessed for that, for sure.
Did you ever have somebody that was like, this doesn't work? What the hell?
Well, when I was training, we'd have people who were skeptical, but at the end of it, they could see the results. And, for me right now, what I'm doing is I'll be offering, what I do with my constellation work when I do workshops, and I'll be offering more and more, is I do demonstrations. And I think you had actually come to a workshop that I did. And I do small exercises with the groups that come, because everybody who comes should get something out of a workshop. So I feel that everybody who comes in, we do small exercises, and I've had people who have come in and just done a 20-minute exercise and come back and said it changed their lives because so much shifted. And all it was is a very basic exercise that took them back to a childhood, put their parents there, and then we shifted anything that they were latching onto or holding onto that was crushing them in their lives. And then when we freed them, and what we really do in constellation work is we, as children, we come in absolute innocence, as we know. We're blank slates, and we take on everything. And even if it's a negative thing, we take it on.
Yeah,
because we're just
that's true.
We're just sponges. And if we see our parents going through something, we'll take it on for them. But at the end,
it doesn't belong to us.
Exactly.
And that is a problem that a lot of therapists talk about, is if you have a child whose mother was depressed, or you had a child whose parents were anxious, or they were going through hostility, maybe a time in their marriage, or financial fear. I think that's something that a lot of kids can absorb just from the process of being around it. There is these, even though we can't see it, there is still the thought patterns, the brain wave activity that we can't see, but it's just by the process of osmosis almost, you're absorbing it. That's true.
Right, exactly. So what we do is, just even through very simple exercises, we give back. It's a very good word, belong. We give back what belongs to the parents. And what a very strong truth statement is, I leave everything that belongs to you with you. And then we walk away and we take a step back, and we literally give back to the parents what is theirs. Because here's the other thing, we're judging our parents for saying, oh, you can't handle that, I'm going to take it. We're also trying to be bigger than them, when the hierarchy is that we are their children. We need to remain the child.
Yeah.
And then we need to allow the parent to be the parent. Whether the good or bad parent, the judgment is what keeps us entangled.
Right.
And the judgment is also what keeps us from yearning more from our parents that they're not capable of giving. And then through acceptance work, so in family constellation, the other big thing is acceptance. There's no forgiveness, just accept.
Right.
I accept you where you are.
But by accepting, you are forgiving.
It's forgiveness a little bit.
Yeah, you're letting go of that anger, which is the opposite of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've just started a new training called contribution training, and it's really just taking people at the linear level and accepting them at the linear level. Oh, well, you know, even like Madison does a lot of astrology. She's great at astrology, and she can look at astrology and go, oh yeah, you're this, this, and this. And that's what she did before she looked at before we did the show, and she understood me a little bit better. So you can tell like somebody's got more material life force, somebody's got more caring life force, somebody's got more
earthy,
performance life
right.
force. So different people have different life forces, which
Yes.
is another
or
training.
different, or another word I think I would like to use is essences.
Yeah.
You know, we all have our own essence, and that's what makes us special and unique, and or combination or flavor or energy, life force. There's a lot of different ways to say it, for sure.
Exactly. So that's what we do in Constellation. One of the big things that I have been learning and want to really, you know, I'm going to be doing more and more workshops around LA, and I also do private sessions, and I'm going to do some demos so that anybody wants to come out and do the come to demos and then just see how Constellation works. Then I'll be posting a lot of that on my website, on Facebook, and I'm really working with what I call the here and now, because this is the person that showed up here and now.
Yes.
to work on themselves. And one of the big things that I believe is, I believe in me. You know, I was brought up Hindu, but even if I wasn't, I think I would still believe in incarnation,
reincarnation, right?
Right. And I have come into this lifetime to heal massive amounts of stuff, and I've gone through a lot, and I've healed a lot too. And
tell us a little bit. Like, you grew up in England, right? In the UK?
I was born in UK to very strict Indian parents who wanted me to get arranged and all of that.
Like arranged marriage?
Yeah. So
you have to do a family constellation on that just to release that. Oh my God.
Done many constellations on that one. So the long and the short of it is that, you know, my parents tried to arrange me when I was 21 and I came to the US.
You ran. Did you run away?
No, actually he did. Luckily,
he ran away.
I was so lucky. I got saved. He ran away.
Oh my God.
His parents did not think I was good enough.
Well, there's a thing. I mean, I have a friend who actually lives in New Delhi, and she did just get married. We were invited to the wedding, as a matter of fact, in December, which is during their monsoon. But she had a big problem. She was this amazing businesswoman, really smart, really well educated. She had also lived in the UK, which is how I met her when I lived there. But his family did not accept her family, because I guess there's like a whole hierarchy there.
There is.
It's so much different than
so
here.
Patriarchal.
Yeah, and you have to be from a certain family to marry somebody else. And if your families are not on the same level, even if you're super educated, it goes back to your lineage. This is why you're interested probably in family constellation, to like bust out of all that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all... sorry, part of my phrasing, but it's all man-made BS. I mean, that's what I think.
That's your disclaimer, the word BS.
That's it.
There's been worse on the show.
Yeah. So I just believe, you know, so years ago, you know, I was just, I rebelled, of course. I'm an Aquarius, so I was not having it. And then years later, you know, I started doing all this healing work on myself, and really came back to being my spiritual being again. Because when I was younger, I was very turned on. Madison's gonna love this, but you know, I remember being 2-3 years old and literally feeling like the mothership dropped me off, and I've been waiting for it to pick me up my whole life.
Well, that was probably true.
Yeah.
That was probably true for you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Aquariuses share that with you, by the way. That's my personal belief, that they're really from a different solar system.
Absolutely.
And maybe this could be your first incarnation, or one of the first incarnations that you've had here.
Yeah. No, this is, I do know that this is I say this quite often, but this is my 86th tour. And this is my last tour of the Earth.
You actually have a number. Let's talk a little bit about reincarnation, because it does tie into your family constellation work. And there's a lot of people that I'm assuming most people do know what reincarnation is, but some people are not familiar with the idea. Some people, as we said before, you and I, before this show started, some people think that this is it. Nobody really knows, to tell you the truth. And different religions talk about different things, and that's the other component. But we do seem to come in with so much personality and so many strong likes and dislikes, and also talents as very young children, and also a certain affinity. Like, I know myself, I have an affinity to certain parts of the world and certain costuming that I used to, even as a child when I used to draw from certain time periods. And I mean, how can you dismiss that? I mean, I guess somebody could say, oh, you saw it on TV. But I think your heart has all the answers, and what you tend to really gravitate towards is really a key.
Yeah. I think, here opinions are, like, as they say, like assholes, everybody has one. So I think it's okay that, everybody doesn't believe in reincarnations. My brother does not. He thinks this is his only lifetime. I am so switched on to the other side that I can meet someone and just, I can feel it, or I can tell, you're a kindred soul.
Like there's a feeling of recognition.
Yeah. Some people more than others, right? So this is how I work with constellation work is, I believe that the person that is standing right in front of me, who is looking for healing here and now, may have been 10 generations behind, or they are.
So you think you may have a link to them anyway?
Yeah,
like it's been brought together for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I might be me. I might be my great ancestral grandmother from 20 generations ago.
Well, there are people that believe, people that talk about reincarnation do say that we incarnate reincarnate as a family lineage, and you really literally could be the mother of your niece. You could have been the mother of a niece, or the child of a great well, this doesn't really make sense, because then you would be the great grandmother.
Yeah.
but or you could have been married.
I could be me 10 generations or 20 generations behind. And the thing is, I may have been repeating these patterns of, subservient patterns, which I do know because I've had memory. I've many past life recalls. One of is an Egyptian time, and I've had another one where I remember being in sort of an Arabic country or a Muslim country, and I remember the brother and mother that I have now being in that lifetime, and I was a harem and I killed myself. Because I was like, no, you're not going to have my body. And so I've really been trying to free myself.
Did that come to you in a vision or a meditation, or was it through the family concept? Like, how did you get that information?
That particular vision came to me while I was literally driving in Florida when I lived in Florida.
So something hit you in a memory, or maybe you saw a palm tree that reminded you of the palm tree next to your mud house.
I went through a lot with my my family, and all these memories got triggered while I was doing a lot of healing work for myself. So I got shown where all the entanglements are. But fast forward, some 10 years later, when I started doing the constellation work, it really did show up where all my entanglements were. So I feel that if you heal the person
that you are now,
you probably heal them back there, and then they can move forward much more freely. But the biggest thing that I also will say about this is there's probably a running theme of why they have come back here again, and probably because we didn't have the tools back then to, we lived in different times.
We don't know.
We also lived in different times. If you look at Earth, it's a very patriarchal society that we lived in. We didn't, we lived with lesser means. We lived with
but we may have had more access to herbs, or we may have known things that we kind of have pushed away now.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe that person who was doing the constellation 1,000 years ago was really reaching your constellation in the here and now.
Yeah,
and maybe that inspired you, because time is happening all at once.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is true, that as you heal now, you're also kind of making these tweaks and these adjustments to your past self and your future self.
Right. And
if
everybody
that's
that
true.
comes, you know, if you have
Before and
children,
after.
you clear the pathway for them not to carry all those things too. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. For those of you who want to know more about reincarnation, you can also see A Dog's Purpose. Well, I haven't seen it, but I heard about it, and I heard enough to promote it because I love animals, and it's about a dog who, it's a very sad movie. I want to just warn you, but it's about a dog, and I don't know the whole premise, but you know, the family loves the dog and the dog loves the family, and the dog dies, and I think that that's a very big sad part of the movie. But the thing that's so interesting about this movie is the dog reincarnates like 5 times, and I believe they keep finding the same dog, so it kind of has that through line.
Right.
Of course, I could be completely wrong, and somebody's going to call in. You can call in. Somebody's going to call in and say, don't talk about things you don't know. That's nothing like the movie. But anyway, yeah, I've always been fascinated by reincarnation ever since I was a kid, and I saw that movie On a Clear Day You Can See Forever with Barbara Streisand. Oh my God, I knew it was just some rerun on an old movie channel, and I knew nothing about reincarnation, and it's fascinating. She goes to a shrink to stop smoking, and he puts her under. He's actually a hypnotist, and each time she goes to him, he doesn't tell her this, but he records her. She talks in a different voice, and she starts talking about all these past lives, and that's how I realized that there's a possibility that this isn't the only one.
Yeah, exactly. I know I have many recalls. Yeah.
And they can be triggered by looking at something.
Or someone coming into your life, like when I met my ex-boyfriend. Now he's my ex-boyfriend, but when he came into my life,
and you knew he was going to be his
I kind of did know.
ex-boyfriend.
I kind of did know, and I just went with it anyway because that's what you do.
You had that vision of the future, and you're like, "You're my ex-boyfriend, but I might as well go through it."
Yeah, because it's shit I gotta learn here. I'm gonna get it with you, and I did. So
you can complete the karma too.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's interesting, like the way the brain triggers. They're like, I think we don't. I mean, we're learning more about the brain, and we're learning more about neuroplasticity all the time, and how the brain is actually it's a city of circuits and grooves, and those grooves get entrenched. But there's a lot we don't know about the brain too. Right. And I remember smelling some cologne on somebody, and I smelled it, and it took me back like to high school, to this ex-boyfriend. I mean, all of a sudden I was in the room, and I'm visualizing everything that I had seen the last time we were together. It's just crazy how those things happen.
Yeah, I remember when I went to a college trip, great fun for 4 days in Barcelona, but the feeling, it felt like home to me. I was trembling the whole time, but it felt like home. And I've lived in many different places, but nothing has the feeling of Barcelona and it being my home has never left me. It still calls me, and if I ever retire, I'll be like, that's where I'm going to go.
Wow. Do you speak Spanish?
I would love to speak Spanish, but I can't roll anything off my tongue.
You can practice.
Exactly. So I'll speak very broken Spanish.
So before we move on to some of the other stuff, I really want to talk about all this other stuff that you do, because I think what you do is fascinating, Nita. You're very different, and you're very tuned into the higher dimensions, more than anybody I've ever met.
Yeah.
So
I did want to just say one more thing because you mentioned DNA.
Yeah.
And it is possible so for me, I have been, and this is probably going to be really out there for some people, and some people that be like,
I think they have to accept that about you, that this is the out there show with Nita, the Aquarian.
Seriously, I live in the cosmos.
Really you do. It should be that should be part of your name.
The Cosmos Lady. Mm-hmm. One of the big things that I have been working on, when I was little, I knew who I was. I literally did know who I was. I came in as a blank slate. I had massive memories. I
So you didn't come in as a blank slate because you had all these.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. But I came in knowing where I was from. I felt the beings of where I was from, and I felt them missing when I was 2-3 years old. I was calling them to come and pick me up in their mothership. But
so you really felt like you were extraterrestrial.
Yeah. And when I looked at my parents, I honestly,
you were like, who are these people?
I did. I really did. And everybody was in grays, shades of gray and blobs. And then once in a while I would see light people. I remember like when I was about 7 years old, and there was a boy that we moved into a new house, and there was a boy there, and he had passed, and he and I would do crazy things because he would tell me. One time I jumped out my bedroom window, and my mother will attest to that story. But he and I played.
Well, why did you jump out of your bedroom window?
Because he said jump out. Well, he passed. He passed. He told me he had cancer, and he passed. It was a 7-year-old boy. Oh. I heard this when I was 7, and well,
was he there or was he just?
He had passed.
Oh, so you actually saw a spirit?
Yeah.
When you were 7?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he told me jump out my
bedroom. Because at first I thought he was just someone who lived next door to you.
No, he's a passed over. He told me he had cancer, and but he was just roaming around, and we would play, and we were naughty. You
actually had this is an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Okay. So could you ever conjure him up again, or ask him to kind of appear? When did you?
I don't know. He was in UK, so I don't know if he's here now.
Yeah, that's true.
He might have reincarnated.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So this is about that.
But one of the things I was going to say is that I like when I was little, I remembered I had memory of where I come from, if you will, and over the years it's. I've got bogged down with family and life and all these other things in the last 17 years. I've been really calling in my true original self, is what I call it. The self that is here for a reason, my purpose and all of it, right? Why am I really here? What am I doing on this planet? And I've been shifting my DNA, getting rid of, like, if you will, my dad's DNA, my mother's DNA, and really becoming who I want to be. And that, you could put it in different ways. You can say, you're shedding the clothes that you don't need. You're also undoing the parts that you don't need anymore of yourself, right? Of your upbringing or hurt or pain or whatever it is. And to go with what you were talking about, shifting DNA and stuff, there is a little bit of science around family constellation work where they have seen where epigenetics, where you can turn off and on, like we've some people that I've worked with had severe depression, and they've come in and literally in a 45-minute session with me one-on-one, I've worked with some people who had severe either addiction or depression, and we have switched that switch off. And they've come back, and I remember one lady, she was a writer, and she's like, I'm so stuck. We worked with her, and then she went back and wrote her book and flourished and did what she needed to do in her life. And then we've had people who had severe, I forgot what the disease is, but it basically is when you bleed out severely.
Hemophilia?
Yes, thank you. And they did a constellation, and it stopped them from having the bleeding episodes.
So, one thing I did want to ask you, though, is how is this different than therapy? I mean, I'm getting that you're breaking blocks. Do you think it's working in therapy or traditional talk therapy? People kind of talk and talk and talk and talk. Sometimes the therapist will be able to point out their blind spots, but it could take years.
Right. Well, I did 4 years. I did therapy years ago because I was severely abused, and I came out of a very severely abused situation. And I mean, I was really bad. I can talk about it a little bit now, but it was so devastating at the time. And I've done so much work on myself too. But I went to a therapist years ago. I went to a counselor. I loved her.
Uh-huh.
The counselor was great. And I made major breakthroughs with her, with my self-worth and accepting my part in the abuse, because a lot of people who are in abusive situations think it's all their fault. But there's, the larger part is the victim perpetrator, which is the big foundation of family constellation work. And then she sent me to a therapist. The therapist was so clinical, she knocked me back years. And it took me a long time to come back. And I worked with another therapist. She's actually in Topanga Canyon, who I'm going to start working and doing contribution training, coaching with. But she is a lot less clinical. She's also very spiritual, and we do Gestalt work, which is similar to Constellation work, where you feel, you know, a lot of it in your body, and then you can shift it within the body system. So what is, you know, there's good therapy and bad therapy. I think therapy does have a foundation in a place, because family constellation work was based on, you know, psychoanalysis, which is really all about the human behavior, right? And one of the big things is, no matter whether you're working with a therapist or you're doing constellation work, what it really is healing, like I said, the here and now. And as long as you're healing, you feel, you know, because years ago, I literally felt nuts in my head. I felt ill. And as I started to undo, you know, my mother's stuff or my father's stuff, all the abuse, I started to feel clearer and cleaner in my mind and in my body. I've worked through a lot of different things. So I think that therapy has its place with a great therapist. And I think constellation work also has its place, because I actually did both simultaneously at one point in my life.
That's really good information. I mean, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because I'm sure that at all time, at different times, we've all felt that way. And the fact is, like, is it holding you back in life, and what you can do about it, and how you can keep things, that inner calm, so that you can do your next steps.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
So I want to take a minute, and I want to thank everybody for joining us, because this is the time this is the time where I ask for thumbs up and I ask for some hearts, because that's how I know how many viewers we've had and what kind of information they like. And so please send us some. But I also wanted to move on to the things that you've created. See, one thing that I didn't really know about Nita Kamari is that she's also a painter and an artist, and also a channeler. So you were talking about, I really want to get back to that boy that was in your room, but we'll come back to him in a little bit. But she actually has created her own deck, which is fascinating, because I'm a tarot card reader, and this deck is different than any deck I've ever heard about or seen. Right. And I'm really actually proud of you that you came up with this concept. It uses sound healing and sound therapy. It's only a deck of 15 cards. I mean, it's really, really different. 13 cards. I want you to talk about it. I want you to let everybody know where they can get it. But I mean, I didn't even know that you were working on this. And then the other thing is what you were channeling. I mean, it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And if anybody wants any information, I think Madison's posted it, but you can go to my website. It's worldloveon.com.
So that would be WORLD. World ON
LOVEON, worldloveon.com.
On's at the end.
Yeah. Okay. So if you can't really see it, but I do have like it's a on sign. It's a actual love on sign, the heart with the on sign, but it's worldloveon.com. To the you know, I've been sitting on things until I feel I've done enough healing to present things into the world with more consciousness. So this is actually, it's called 12, and it's a sound healing oracle deck. And it's called 12 because I'm the 12th element on the 12th planet, which is planet Earth. So there's many different planetary systems that I'm connected to, if you will. And there are 12 planets that are a little bit more of the ones that I work with. And this is kind of like a map of how they are in conjunction with each other, but not necessarily in the same galaxy. I don't know where they are. I just channel them. Somebody asked me, and I'm like, I just listen to spirit.
And so, they all have their own kind of essence, or
yeah. Yeah, so the deck is like this, and each one has a number. So there's 12 of them. They all have their own color. They all have their own symbol. It tells you in the bottom whether it's a masculine energy, a feminine, or a neutral energy, and what the planet is actually representing. And what I really like, is the coolest feature for me, is the black hole. So there's a bonus card, and it's called the black hole.
But it's actually very pretty. It's you actually designed all of these cards. I told you earlier that you should have a art installation.
Yeah.
Because I think these are so cool. I would want to hang them. I mean, they're very meditative too. When you can focus on them and actually kind of pull,
you can actually, so you can use them on your body because they are healing. And the symbols connect you with the planet. Each planet has its own vibration, and each planet has, just like Earth makes, her own noise without us humans making our noise.
Is that true? Is that really true? That is scientifically proven.
Yeah, there's an app.
That's not like if the tree falls and nobody's there, does it make a noise? Well, I guess it does make a noise.
Yeah, so planets actually they make sounds too.
So it's like a vibrational noise.
Yeah. So there is an app. I forget what the app is called, but somebody was showing me. I went to a show and an expo with my cards and my book, and they showed me. They're like, "Oh my God, have you seen this app? Is it like this?" And I said, "I don't know. I was just listening to spirit because that's what I do." But yes, there's an app, and everything out in the universe does make a noise. So like if you imagine, like for me, what I got downloaded was the black hole is so cool for me because I'm like, wow, imagine going through the black hole. It's like a cycle of birth and rebirth. You go through, kind of a rinse cycle, and you come out, pretty nice and washed up, if you will. Or you might come out a little mangled and wrangled. I don't know.
It depends on what it would really be like to go through a black hole.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's certainly fascinating, the idea that if you're out in space and there's all these sounds and all these vibrations, and I just think it's fascinating that you're so pulled by that aspect of life.
Yeah, I mean, the sounds might be, muted. We might not. I mean, if we were out in space, we've heard that people who do go to space, it's very eerie and quiet. So the sound might be more ultra where we can't really hear it. But I have been downloaded with these vibrations of when you get to the planet, and none of these planets are necessary to incarnate on, but I know that I have visited every single one of them. And when I was channeling and downloading and actually coming up with the deck, I felt like I went through all of them all at once. And this, and it was like a massive healing.
I'm changing this episode to the out of this world episode. This is what we're gonna call your episode, the out of this world episode.
So there's a download card, and you download the tracks for each one of the planets and the black hole, and then you ask a question. Like Madison today asked about her career, and she pulled the planet 4, which is actually a neutral card and yellow. It's kind of a yucky yellow.
No, I love that card.
Yeah.
I would want that card hanging in my house.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
It's a planet of synergy, and it's neutral and balanced. So, and it's also a planet of rediscovering something new. So it's great that you're going to be starting a new job because it's actually a perfect card.
So it's good for me because to discover something new, something new about myself. So are there?
And it's also balance. I didn't do negative. You were going to ask.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if there's any. Could I possibly pulled the wrong card or a bad card? Or
I've noticed that I use them in my readings, and I've had other readers who have used them, and they said they felt the vibrations of the planets while they were pulling the cards, and the other person was actually getting healings, which I was like, that's great. I don't believe in negative. I feel you could be ascended and still have a lot still to learn. And we're always going back to, I could meet someone brand new in my life and go back to basics of having to relearn something, learn something new. And I feel like I've done a ton of work on myself, but I get on LA roads and could be horrible because I hate LA. I hate driving in LA. So I clearly need a lot of help.
You're not as highly evolved as you're saying.
Exactly.
You're like, get out of the way. Oh my God.
I am a mad British driver on the road.
Well, because everybody's on the wrong side here.
Wow.
For you. You want to be on the other side.
No, it's so...
That's so funny. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know how many of you are in LA or not in LA, but yeah, we probably have the worst situation on the roads than any other state. I mean, the I don't know what do you call it?
There should be a kill switch on the texting and driving. It's really annoying.
Our road rage is like off the charts. For the number of spiritual people that live in LA, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the amount of people who are on their phone.
They're all going to yoga classes.
Oh, that's right.
They're all going for yoga.
They're going to be late.
Or they're going for readings, or they're going for healings, or they're going to auditions, and you almost get killed wherever you go. But so let's say I was doing this at home for myself and I pulled that card. What is the name of that card that I actually got? The one that was number 4?
It was Planet of Synergy.
Okay, so let's say I pulled that. Would I then go ahead and download the soundtrack and listen to that particular segment, or would I listen to the whole thing while I'm doing the reading?
So it's a good question. I always say, ask a question and pull. There's only 13 cards, so you don't need the merit of who we are constitutionally, what we made up of is not that big. Like the tarot deck has a lot of different cards, and your spirit really said condense it. We don't need all those cards, right?
Let's just make the reading fast. Make it easy.
So, you can pull up to 3 cards, and if you want more information, you pull a little bit more. But you basically would take that card, and you would download the tracks, and then you can play that track, and you can loop it. So if you want a longer sound healing session for yourself, you can loop it and go for an hour if you wanted to.
Oh, you could use it as a meditation tool.
Right.
Like, for instance, if I was which I am a little bit nervous about starting this new job on Thursday that I have, I could prepare myself either that morning or the night before. That's great. It's good work.
And then if you have like 3 planets that you pulled, you can then listen to all 3 planets and again do a sound healing session for yourself. And if you're a healer and you want to do group healings, or you have somebody come in for Reiki and you want them to pull a card because this is what they're working on, you could also do group healings and then do other work with them. I am working on an actual healer's box.
Mm-hmm.
So the next natural progression from this is going to be a healer's box, where I will actually will be certifying people who want to learn how to drop into these planets and then facilitate actual healings with the planets.
And how many cards? Is that another deck, or is that just an adjunct?
It's going to be add to this one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be adding a couple of more cards to it, but not a lot. But they'll have the healer's box will have actual crystals that belong to the planet.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a great idea.
And gemstones, and then each of the gemstones and the crystals will have the symbols of each one of the planets, and you can put it on the body. And you can put the cards on your body too, but it's just another.
I like how interactive you are, like with the family constellations. It's very encompassing for the whole room. They all get a piece of your life, even if they don't know what they're playing. No, it's very cool. And then this, you had said that you actually, really quickly, the music or the sounds of the planets, you said are. They're instrumental?
So we used crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls to
bring
the sounds down. And so it's really a womp womp. It really takes you down. Like if anybody's been to drumming circles, shaman circles, and they drop you down into a journey into your body. So what the sound healing vibration and plus connecting to the planets does is drop you into out of your mind into your subconscious and consciousness, and get rid of your consciousness into your subconsciousness,
right, into the basement, right,
and out of the ego, and drop you in so that you can really get clear, concise messages. Now, even if you don't get them in the sound healing and you go sleep or you get on with your day, it will come to you later.
So these are vibrational sounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that when I see the singing bowl at the Mystic Journey, and I've used it, I mean, the kids are always fascinated by the gong. They're always fascinated by wind chimes and anything that kind of has not so much of kids are always fascinated by music, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
But even when you play a guitar, there's a certain vibration. I mean, you can, you
babies,
feel it.
When we sing them lullabies, they, hopefully fall asleep.
Yeah, that's true. And then you channeled this one. This is something completely different, or do you sell them together?
Oh, no, you can buy them separately. This is called, this is an audio book. I channeled the whole thing. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it's called Super Lights. And these are the beings. They are super pure entities that I've been sitting on this book for 10 years, by the way, and I finally, Spirit said, you've got to get this message out. And it's about the Ascended Master's children that have come into Earth, and they really have the book is about why they're here, what their messages are, and what their mission is. And one of the big things is, in the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about Yuga, and there's 4 of them. There are 4 stages of the human.
What is the
Bhagavad Gita?
Bhagavad Gita? What is that?
It's the Hindu Bible, if you will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like the Quran and the Bible.
Yes.
So the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
And really, for me anyway, any book is just spiritual teachings. It's the inner conflict of man, of the human condition. So in what the super lights are here to do is show us that we have a different way that we can be. We can live amongst each other with all of our differences and still coexist. Like I was coming here and there were so many different ethnicities in this one complex, right? Yeah. And where I live in LA, I mean, there's so many different ethnicities, and we can all, if we can accept each other's differences, but accept that, what I always say is if you cut me and if I cut you, we all bleed the same color, and we all aspire for the same things. We all want safety, want security, we want love. And most of us in the world want peace, right? And so the messages of how we can come in, with our light and continue being in our light when somebody perpetrates us. And again, this goes back to constellation work, where we work with the victim perpetrator and we really talk about like how not necessarily turning the other cheek, but seeing where we can, live with what the other person has done and heal from ourselves rather than retaliating or having revenge.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So this is all channeled.
This is all channeled, and what's inside you can go to my website, worldloveon.com, and there is a link to download the audiobook, or if you want a signed copy from me, you can also order that from the website, and then I'll sign it and ship it to you. But inside there is just like the
cards.
Yeah, there's a download card. So you would download the recording, and it's in 4 sessions, so you don't have to sit there and try and listen to almost 2 hours at once.
Is it kind of nice to listen to when people are driving? I mean, would that help me driving in LA to maybe not be so mad at people that cut me off?
When I will say this is, it is truly a journey that you go on with me. And I could not write the book. I felt it was very experiential. And at the time I was going through a lot of things for myself, and I truly understand now what they talk about. And they talk a lot about dark and light, which is, you can see they're the light in all this darkness, but look at all the love that they can bring. And they, you could try while you're driving, but the other big thing I was going to say, once you connect with these Ascended Masters children, they're very mischievous, by the way.
Oh,
but they're a lot of fun. But once you connect with them, they're with you, because we're all one, we're all connected.
So I think we're probably almost out of time. So tell people again how they can find you, so that they can follow you or they can order these.
Yeah. You can find me on my website at worldloveon.com. You can also email me at info@worldloveon.com, and then I will get back to you, and we can, if anybody wants a session or they want to know more, that I do have Constellation videos up on my website.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then also at the Mystic Journey.
At the Mystic Journey bookstore, I'm a reader there. But I also have videos about the book and how to use the cards. Everything's on the website.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nita.
Thank you for coming. Yeah. And I hope that thank you for, she actually gifted me these. So I'm looking forward to downloading the sounds and listening to it. And I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode of Metaphysically Speaking with Mystic Madison and all my wonderful guests. Next week at 3 p.m., I have somebody who's coming who's a shaman, and she's a medicine woman, and she's a facilitator of ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about that, which is also very interesting. And as always, we're outside the box, and you were out of this world.
Oh, thank you, Madison.
So thank you so much for joining us. And I guess we'll say goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Peace out. Peace out.